Hey guys, welcome back to Ancient Literature. This video is probably going to be a little shorter than usual, I guess, since on Monday we ended up having those two videos that ran a bit long. So I'll just talk about the very beginning of Book 9, and then we'll talk about the much more exciting conclusion to Book 9 on Friday. So try to finish that up tomorrow, and we will have an assessment on Book 9 on Friday. Okay, before we get into the notes, if you even want to call them that, I literally have about 3 slides to go over for this book because not a ton happened in this passage so far. But if you look to the bottom left, that is the poll from last week. So 60% of you guys weren't super into book 8, but 40% were into it. That's actually not bad, all things considered. I mentioned last week how when I first read Aeneid, I remember uh, kind of losing a little bit of interest in the second half. That might not be your experience at all. I find coming back to it now, years later, that this part of it is a little more interesting to me. But some reasons you might feel like you're not as interested is because we had all this hype about them getting to Italy for 6 books, and now they're there, and we've also been told over and over again, like, them founding Rome is it's gonna happen, and so you might feel like it's like, well, I already kind of know what's gonna happen now. Like they're in Italy, and maybe you were more into the uh, like the Odyssey portion of it. Also, our bad guy Turnus, he's kind of loosely built up. They give him some dialogue and some characteristics, but he's definitely no Achilles or Hector or anything like that. And partly just because he's so new and we weren't hearing about him in the first 6 books. So, yeah. But that doesn't mean just because those two aspects could potentially make the second half less engaging for you, it doesn't mean it has to be less engaging. So try to find something to uh, be interested in, and like when they do talk about Turnus, you definitely want to pay attention to those parts because it is going to flesh him out a little bit. The very beginning, the upper right. Is the first part of book 9, and they talk about Turnus getting this message from Iris. I'm going to jump back real quick, but that's Iris in the middle there. So she was Juno's messenger in Iliad too. So she's delivering messages on behalf of Juno to Turnus. So this does kind of give us the sense that Turnus is interacting with a Greco-Roman god in the same way that Aeneas is. So Aeneas isn't the only one who feels like he has the backing of um, uh, a god, basically. So that's something. Turnus isn't just doing this because some uh, Fury manipulated him. He's being spurred on directly by Juno at this point. Yeah, and so we're getting into like the heart of the Iliadic portion here. That's going to start to peak in like book 10, 11, and 12. Aeneas and all the Trojans, the allies he picked up from his encounter with Evander and the Laurentum people, they are fortified in this encampment, and Turnus and his Rutulians are outside of these fortified walls. And Turnus is described, uh, he's compared to a wolf stalking the gates of this encampment. And this should recall, what does that recall, guys? What Iliadic reference is Virgil making here? We have this fierce warrior prowling the walls of an encampment. That's very Achilles-esque, right? So, yeah, that should remind you of Achilles towards the very end of Iliad. So I talked about how these 6 books are going to encapsulate the 24-book Iliad. We're going to start seeing these like references, really like coming on pretty quickly. Uh, and that's I don't know that's worth noting, I guess, because in the Iliad that's something that happens all the way at the end, and here it's happening towards the beginning of their encounter. So Virgil's gonna move through some of these beats way more quickly than Homer did. All right, and so since they can't get into the encampment, they're like, "Oh, we'll go burn your ships that are presumably docked on the beach." And Juno's like, "Don't do that. I'm gonna turn them into nymphs." And I know I've seen a good painting of these ships being turned into nymphs, but I can't find it. I'll keep looking. In the lower right, I think that's like when it's the transformation is supposed to be happening, but you don't actually see them turning into nymphs. This can be symbolic of the fact that they're stuck in Italy now. Their ships are turning into nymphs, and they are here to stay. There's no going back at this point. All right, and then we leave off this first portion with these two young Trojans, Nisus and Euryalus, deciding to go on a midnight raid while the Rutulians are camping outside the Trojan encampment. So, what does this remind us of in terms of the Iliad? If you're thinking the scene with Diomedes and Odysseus, you are correct. So yeah, this is where we leave off. They're going through the camp and they're taking some goods, they're picking up some loot basically, and we will see how that goes. It'll be worth uh, observing um, that we should compare this to the raid that Odysseus and Diomedes do. So as you finish up this book, see how this is similar to that raid and how it's different, and just try to kind of like appreciate what Virgil is doing with that reference. Um, when Virgil is referencing Homer, it's not always just this empty gesture of like, oh look, remember Homer? Sometimes he's kind of like doing a variation on it, or it's almost like it can serve as commentary on stuff that Homer did. Okay, that's about it for today. So, if you've not finished your poem, how about you get it out of the way early? It's not technically due for another week, but I would love to get some early submissions. So, there's a part of the form for today where you can enter it in if you want, though it's not due till next Wednesday technically. But if you do turn it in today and you're willing to share, um, I will probably share it on Friday. There's a chance I'll have some to share today, but it'll be in a separate video because I haven't heard back from some of the submissions uh, regarding whether they're willing to share them. So yeah, hopefully some people are gonna let me share their poem or whatever. That would be cool, guys. Okay, so finish book 9 tomorrow. Enter in your poem today, or email it to me whenever. So yeah, if email works better for you, if you like don't like how the formatting is looking when you type it into the form, then you can just email it to me. And then yeah, please do let me know if you are cool with me sharing it, and if you are cool with your naming attached, or if you don't want your name attached. Okay. Also, since I was thinking about it, it's like I really want at least one of you to write a sonnet, uh, and maybe that's unfair for me to want that if I don't write a sonnet myself. So I wrote a. It's not great. It's not great, but I just did it to kind of demonstrate that it's not too hard. I did this in like 10 minutes. I wrote this from the perspective of a character. Okay, so that's kind of nice if you want to do that. It's a way of making it feel like it's not so personal. That you're just kind of like inhabiting a kind of character, if you will. That's how a lot of like songwriting happens. Um, and then yeah, this one little other thing that I would add to the poetic devices we talked about on Monday is a caesura, which is just a super fancy word, just kind of like enjambment is a very fancy word for something really simple. But a caesura is a fancy word for basically a comma happening in the middle of your line. So it might seem really tricky to have to fit exactly 10 syllables into every line and get this A B rhyme scheme going on. But keep in mind, you don't have to like have every line be a single complete sentence that ends in a period. They can just like keep enjambing into the next line. You can have a period or a comma in the middle of a line. Basically, all you have to watch out for is not having a word at the end of your line overflow and make it to where it's like 11 or 12 beats instead of 10. That's like the big thing. And that's not too tricky. Sometimes it's just a matter of finding the right conjunctions or prepositions that will allow you to hit that 10 beat and not come up under or over that. What else was I going to say? Okay, yeah, and you can go over 10 beat. The last little slide for today, I'll jump to after this. Um, it's not the end of the world if you have a couple of lines or more that do hit like 11 or 12 beats or 9 beats. If most of them are hitting 10, that still counts as a sonnet, and that still counts as iambic pentameter. There's something to be said for variation and like kind of breaking your form slightly, like temporarily. But I'll just go through this poem I'm not proud of this at all, but I just thought I'd demonstrate what it could be like. So, okay, listen for how the rhythm sounds like it's actually hitting the rhyme scheme it's intending to hit, or when it sounds wonky. Or I end up doing a lot of internal rhyme within the lines, kind of on accident, and my end rhymes are often not perfect rhymes. They're more like slant rhymes. But anyway, okay, lots of free time. But since when is freedom unfun? Trying to appreciate it, but I can't help but feel kinda undone by an unexpected turn and just sit with it. Lots of video games. Too much? Setting squirrel traps because they seem to like nuts. But yeah, is Skype and Zoom really enough? It's not like there's really much work that cuts into free time when it's a waiting game. Sometimes I feel the same, but then I don't. And I remember I shouldn't be lame. Just go outside, and if the weather won't hold, I'll just draw and or play piano, or maybe learn a new trick like yo-yo. Okay, so not amazing uh, poetry here, but it's something. And notice like I'm jamming a lot because it, like I'm saying, it's harder honestly to try to end each of your lines in a period and like have the line be its own little sentence. So it was really, I was just focusing on hitting the 10 beats and having the A B C D rhyme happening. And again, my rhymes aren't perfect. Freedom and undone. I don't know if that even rhymes. Now that I'm saying that, like freedom, I don't know. Um, much, enough. Yeah, these are pretty rough rhymes, guys. But it's better than nothing. It is kind of a rhyme scheme. And by the way, the squirrel traps. I don't. It's not like I'm like hunting squirrels. I just uh, you know, put like peanut butter out, and it's kind of gotten to be a problem. I'll be like walking blocks from my house, and squirrels will approach me in the street demanding snacks. It's gotten out of hand. All right, so but by the way, that again that was from a character. That's not actually my perspective. Okay, you can do cool things with poetic forms in terms of like momentarily kind of breaking the rules. So if you look, this doesn't follow a proper rhyme scheme, but I'm hitting 10 beats in these first two lines because that's what you're supposed to do in a sonnet or iambic pentameter. But then I have a line that goes to 12 beats, and there's kind of a metatextual thing going on in terms of that line. Its subject matter is actually about a day feeling longer. So there's actually a coherence to the fact that I'm breaking the rule momentarily, and also the fact that this is um, uh, it's 12 IM. I mean, it's 6 IMs instead of 5. So sitting around is sometimes fun and cool, but I also don't mind going to school. It can make the day go faster and not so long. So the word "so long" is what is breaking the pentameter. It's hitting uh, yeah, 6 IMs instead of 5, like I said. And yeah, I just think that's kind of fun. There's more examples of this. I might try to think of more, but I don't know, kind of cool. It's like you can play with punctuation and grammar in a way that is reflecting what the poem is actually about. So hopefully that actually makes sense. All right, guys, I'm looking forward to reading. I already got one, and it's awesome. Just like I said, I don't know if the person wants me to share it or not, so we'll find out. Good luck, guys. Have fun reading and writing. Goodbye.